Hey guys, welcome to our podcast, Table of Four. I am Sunny.
I'm Jonathan.
I'm Lena.
And I'm Jorge.
And welcome to our podcast. And for today's episode, we are going to be talking about. So we're going to talk about the gay stuff, the trans stuff, the bi stuff, literally every letter that's on the LGBTQ plus
Good old
QIA.
Pride Month.
Hi.
The rainbow
Good old
flag.
I
right.
know, right? It's my
Right.
time of the month.
My
It's
time
also
of the
funny
month.
because it's my birthday month as well. So God was planning
Oh,
God
that.
said,
God's plan.
this one's gonna be extra.
It's
Extra.
like this one's gonna be clear as hell, just so you know. I was like, that's what God and planned it and intended, you know. So speaking about pride, what's your opinion on pride?
Well, I
Hopefully good
think
opinions.
right. I think before we get to our opinion, I think we should hear from you, Miss Sunny, about
Me,
yeah, like about your coming out stories because
my
like
journeys.
your journeys because you went through like different journeys, you didn't just come
Mhm.
out once, you came out twice.
Twice, yes. Okay, I guess I'll talk about it. I guess we'll get some
Mm.
sentimental. I mean, do you want me to talk about the day I was born?
I mean,
Like,
you can go as far back as you want.
I
Yeah.
mean, I guess I can talk about how I came to know who I am.
Mhm.
So I guess I'll talk about that. So I guess okay, let's
Yeah.
see, let's back in 2000. Well, I didn't really knew what I was until I was bullied. Like around I think maybe first grade, second grade, I think around that time. Because I remember as a kid, I knew that I was different.
Mm.
Because I remember how my mom and dad raised me and my brother Jonathan. I remember I was born a boy, right? So I was raised as a boy. And so I remember I was fine with that, but I remember when I guess was introduced to girl stuff, I was like, "Oh, this is something I never seen before and I like it." You know?
Mm.
But but I noticed that my brother didn't like it. And so since I was, a boy like my brother, I was like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to like that stuff." But I did like it. And so that was kind of weird to me. But I didn't think it was bad, but I just knew it was just different.
Mhm.
And when you're a kid and you don't really and you're shown to see what's right. I'm using air quotations by the way. What's right and what's I guess normal, you tend to be like, "Oh, this is different and wrong." I mean, not wrong, but I guess you just be like, it's different, right? And
Yeah.
so I remember growing up, I was like, okay, I'm fine with the boy stuff. It was fine. But then I remember, going to preschool and I was interacting with other kids. I noticed that I didn't really relate a lot with the boys.
Mhm.
I didn't really feel like I was part of them. I felt more comfortable around with girls. And I another thing about it, I never really thought about it. I just was like, yeah, I like being around girls and not boys. And I didn't really get bullied in preschool because I feel I don't know if kids in preschool get bullied, but I didn't really get bullied in preschool. The boys in my class in preschool weren't alienating me, but I still feel different from them.
Mhm.
I still wouldn't feel I was like, I don't feel like I'm part of the boys, but I never thought
Mhm.
about that. And then a couple years back, a couple of years forward, heading into primary school, elementary, and then first grade, second grade, I started to get bullied, right?
Mhm.
And I remember then that's when I learned the term, the term that everyone's afraid back in the early 2000s, and that was gay.
You
I
learned
remember
that in 4th grade?
no, first grade. First and second grade.
You
I
learned
learned
about being gay in the 1st grade?
I heard that was the first time I heard the word gay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But
And
like
that and it would and hearing it was a bad term. It was
mm.
I guess a slur in some type of
Mhm.
way. Because I remember, like, just being with my friends and I guess being me. I remember, like, kids, like, boys would be like, "Oh, like, you're, like, really gay." And I'm like, "What what is that? What is
Mhm.
gay?" And, like, I didn't know what it was, but the way he said it seemed bad, and so I felt
Mhm.
kind of like, "Oh, what is this?" Right?
Yeah.
And so I would just, like, I guess, ignored it, but over time, I people like, boys would be like, "Oh, that's gay. You're really gay. Like, stop being like you're like a girl. Stop it. You're being gay." And I was like, "What is this gay thing?" Right?
Mhm.
And I remember, like, going there's also now thinking about it, it's kind of a traumatic too. I remember
Oh my
going to, like,
gosh.
my local church, and I remember, like, because I was doing for, like, my communion, like, thing, whatever, and so I go to church and, like, learn about, like, church stuff, right? And I
Mhm.
remember my teacher literally said this and said that, gays and homosexuals are an abomination.
No.
They said that, and I was like, "Oh, so being gay is bad. Being
Mhm.
gay is an abomination." I was like, "Okay, I'm something that's bad." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so, like,
Mhm.
my whole life I was like, "Well, I'm bad then, like, I'm gay." Like, you mean that's just me, it's 'cause I didn't accept me being gay because I still didn't know what it was, but I guess, like, since everybody was calling me gay,
Mhm.
I just accepted the fact that, like, okay, I'm gay and being gay is bad, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so throughout, like, my entire elementary years, I was just, like, the gay kid, and, like, I always get bullied, people kept, like, telling me these things. I had friends that, that still, like, they were like, like, "Stop saying that," like, you know what I mean? Like, "He's, like, nice and, like, like, he's, like, sweet, stop being, like, a rude," and so, like, I had people backing me up, my girls, but I still felt bad because I was like, "Why am I like this, and why," like, it's bad, right?
Mhm.
And so and it also sucked because, like, there wasn't any, like, representation on being gay, right?
Mhm.
There was none, and so, like, you didn't really have, like a kind of like a light that, like, kind of like like, I guess, like an idol or statues, like, that shows that being gay is okay. Like, there wasn't none of that in, like, the early 2000s, like, none,
Mhm.
and so, growing up, I was just kind of I kinda hated myself, but didn't at the same time. Because I guess because, like, even though, like, I was gay, I wasn't a bad person. Like, I was kind, I was nice, I wasn't selfish. I'm nice to people. So, like, it's just like I can't hate myself because I'm not bad,
Mhm.
but I do at the same time because I'm gay, which is bad,
Mhm.
and so I should hate it. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like a up and down situation for me, like, throughout, like, growing up. And so, and then cutting towards, like, middle school,
Mhm.
that's when I realized, "Oh, yeah, I'm gay." Because at that time, I remember I started developing feelings towards,
Oh.
boys.
Mhm.
And so, like, I was going through puberty and all that, so, like, getting all these feelings, and so, like, I was like, "Oh, okay. So, like, I am, you know, gay." It is. It's true. I'm gay, right? And so,
It's
like, yeah, and so, yeah, because I remember I learned yeah. Because, like, I remember my friends told me about that, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, like, you like boys, like, that's what gay is, like, you like boys." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, because I do like boys." And I'm like, "Ooh." Like, what I mean? But, like the thing is I did have a support system, in my going to school, so, like, I didn't feel as bad about myself, you know what I mean?
Mm.
But home was kinda different because like, my parents weren't really, like, they didn't really talk about, like, gay or, like, or, like, homosexual, anything like that. Like, they didn't really talk about it at all. Like, they weren't like, that's bad or, like, that's good. It was just like, it just wasn't, like, it wasn't something that we talked about. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But the thing is that, like, I remember hearing horror stories, like, about and my friends saying that, like, "Oh, yeah, like, I had this one cousin or this one, brother that, like, came out and then got kicked out." You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And so
Yeah.
that was I was and that because, like, yeah, because my parents were Christian or Catholic and they loved Jesus, right? And so, like, I was like, "Oh my god, my mom and dad love Jesus. They might kick me out," right? But, like, that's
Yeah.
that's what that's what my mind went through, you know what I mean? Because, like,
Yeah.
oh, since they love Jesus or, like, since they love the Bible and everything, I'm like, I might get kicked out, right? And so that's just
Mm.
implanted in my head, and so I was like, "Oh, don't tell this to your parents because 'cause you're gonna get kicked out." Right? And so, like,
Mm.
I just didn't come out at home, and I remember going home, and I felt kind of like it was weird because, like, I remember, like, I wasn't really in the closet per se, like, you know what I mean? I would, like, act super fruity, but I would be like I'm not gay, but, like, it's like, okay, you know? But, like,
Right,
it's yeah,
and, like and to, like, pause,
mhm,
we'll pause on your story, and then, like, like, I wanna get Jonathan's input on, like,
yeah.
as
What's
your
your
story is progressing, like, what
mhm,
I wanna know what Jonathan's thinking
And
since
then we
he is
can
your
talk
brother.
too, because I have actually some interesting story as because I was the older one of the group, so I was seeing and hearing a lot of different things from the adults, and then seeing Sunny like that whole mix. But Jonathan, go ahead and tell your
Uh,
story.
No, yeah, I think when growing up with Sunny, right away when we were growing up, I did notice like there were differences. Yeah, like yeah, Sunny was like my my sibling, my brother, but like as we grew up together, obviously I had like seen differences. I'm like, oh, like my brother's not into like monster trucks or like boy stuff like action figures, GI Joes, stuff like that, and then
Mm.
I'd often like kind of be like, "Oh, that's different," but I wouldn't think much of it until like we grew older. So once we kind of got older, I know Sunny. I remember you, Sunny. I think when we were like little kids, we would like like role play and like just like pretend like we're like fighting bad guys and stuff like that. But like I notice
mhm,
whenever I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm like the soldier," or like I'm the guy, I'm like the dude doing stuff, and you're like, "Oh
mhm.
yeah, I'll be like the princess like right by your side like gonna help you," and I'm like, "Oh,"
Yeah.
I'm like thinking, Why not another soldier?" And you're just like, "Oh, I'm not really into that stuff," and I'm like, "Oh, okay," and like I was just like, "Oh, that's different," because like I never like thought much of it, but I always noticed it though. When I was growing up, I've always noticed it, and I think by the time we got older, right away, I obviously learned more about like, LGBT and stuff like that. And I was just like, oh, my brother is for sure, he's gay. And I'm like, and I asked him, no,
For
I
sure.
asked him like, yeah, because I was like, no, yeah, because once I learned about this stuff, I was like, oh, okay, no, I know for sure. And then when I asked him, like like Sonny mentioned, he was like, no, I'm not gay. And I'm like, are you sure you could talk to me about it? Because I wanted to kind of make him feel comfortable and I wanted to
Mm.
be
Mhm,
accepting. Because like I didn't, even though I had a inkling about, oh yeah, my brother is gay, I never reacted aggressively or reacted negatively. I think
mhm,
most people would assume like, oh yeah, like you would maybe find hate or maybe you would be like angry, like, oh, why is your brother different or why is your brother, like this? And like I never thought that way. So like that's why when I asked him about it, maybe I don't know if you, Sonny, like if you wanted to chime in here and say like whenever I asked you like, oh, are you gay and stuff like that, did you ever feel like scared or did you ever feel like I don't know, like
yes.
offended? Really? No, no, tell me about it because I wasn't sure because like I asked
Mm,
you, but
yeah,
I
'cause,
always
like
I always tried to like make you feel comfortable. I was like, oh, I'm like if
yeah,
you're
I guess
gay,
maybe
it's okay. But then you're like, no, 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 I'm not. I swear. And I'm like, are you sure? Because like we could talk about it, but it's okay. Because if you are, I'm okay with it. And you're like, no, 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 I'm not okay. And I'm not gay. And I'm like, okay, just let me know. Because like if you are,
yeah.
it's
I
okay. And
guess,
then you're just
like
like, okay, but
mhm.
you know,
I guess maybe because like, it was I guess it was kinda like accepting the fact that I
mm,
am,
yeah,
because, like, people's, like, coming out people like, "Oh, like, coming out is, like" it's honestly really hard because, like, I
yeah,
guess it just solidifies that, like, you are not the norm of society. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I guess that's what is accepting in a way, like, you are gonna be ridiculed, you are gonna be hated just for being you. You know what I mean?
Mm.
yeah,
And so, like and the thing is that in a w and, like, people always say, like, "Oh, but, like" because, like, being gay is natural, right? But in a way, you can, like, hide it, right?
Mm.
You mean I like
mm,
you like, you can hide your gayness. I'm using air quotations, by the way. You can hide your gayness, right? But, like,
Mm.
when you are, like, a person of color, you can't hide that. You mean, right? It's something that you, like, it's just there,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
And so when you're gay, it's something that you can hide, right? And like, and accepting the fact that you are gay is just kind of like, wow, like people are gonna hate me for it. You mean
Mm.
people
Mm.
Mm.
are honestly gonna murder me for it. You
Mm.
mean? And so like it's scary when you come
Mm.
out, right? And so that's why like I mean nowadays it's more acceptable, but it's still pretty hard because like I feel like it's one of those things where like no matter how many years we're fighting, it's gonna take longs and long, long, long years to be accepted into like, society. Probably
Society.
never.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
mean like
Mm.
I feel it's gonna be there because someone's always gotta hate,
Yeah.
you know? And so that's why like for me, I always got scared because like, it's like accepting the fact that like, yeah, the whole world's gonna hate me, you know?
Mm. Yeah.
And
Mm.
so that's what the scary part was. You know what I mean? And so that's why I didn't wanna say it, and, like, it was kind of like
Mhm.
it was, like, kind of like a barf word for me. Like, if you guys watch Mean Girls, like, and like, "Oh, don't say that. It's the barf word, like, the barf word, like, you're gonna, like, don't say it, right?" Like,
Yeah.
for me, like, I remember, 'cause okay, so, like, I'll tell you guys when I came out. So I knew everything. I can see it, I can picture it.
I
So,
still
it
remember
was,
that
like, my
day too,
8th
by the
yeah.
way.
It
Yeah.
was my 8th grade promotion.
Yeah.
And I remember I told my friends, like, guys, I'm gonna come out to my family, right? After they pick me up from my promotion. Because like I just like finished 8th grade, right? And I'm moving on to high school. And so it was kind of like a new chapter in my life. And I didn't want to be like in the closet or whatever when I go into my high school years. Like I just want to be me when I go into
Mm.
my high school years. Like I don't want to hide nothing. And so I remember my dad came and like picked me up and I was like, "Oh my god." I'm like, "It's happening." Like I'm just in the car and I was nervous. And then like, I remember like I was just in my room like, "Oh my god." Like like honestly, now you think about it, like it was a lot. Like I remember just in my room like walking back and forth like I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. I'm going to have to say it, right? And like
Yeah.
I remember like coming out of the living room and I'm just like I can't. Like, I just go back in my room and I'm like, "Oh my god." It was scary, like, it was honestly really scary, right? Like, now that I think about it, it's been so long, but, like, I can remember, like, the anxiety, like, I remember, when you're about to have a panic attack, but not, it's, like, that type of feeling. It's just, you just it was just crazy, and I remember, like, I went to the living room, and then my dad and my brother went to go to, the grocery store or something to pick up stuff, and I was like, "Oh, crap,
Yeah.
I bet I need them," right? But, like, I guess, like, I like, no, I can just try it with, like, mom and first, right? But
Mm.
that day, grandma came over, right? And I was like, "Crap." Like, grandma, someone from the older generation, I'm gonna have to come out as well too. Great, okay. And so I remember I sat down in the couch, and I remember I told mom and grandma, like, I have something to share. And so I remember, like, I was like, "I have to tell you
The
something."
accent.
Yeah, "I have to tell you something, right?" And mom was like, "What is it?" And I was like, "Oh my god, I can't say it." Like I remember I started tearing up. I remember like I could not say it. Like I was just like I was like like I was getting choked or something. Like it was that bad. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't like physically say it. Like you know what I
Mm.
mean? Like I felt like someone was choking me when I
Mm.
was saying it. Like it was crazy. Like I remember I started tearing up and like choking in a way. I was like "Ah," and like starting tearing up. And then my mom was like scared and panicking because she saw me doing that, like, you know what I mean? Like, she thought I
Yeah.
was gonna get a seizure or
Yeah,
something
she
because
might
like,
thought you
I
were
was
dying or something.
yeah, and so because I couldn't say it, and she was like, "What's happening? Just, like, what's going on?" And I remember I fought the courage, and then, like, by the way, grandma was, like, sitting right next to me, but she was like, "What the fuck is going on?" Because she doesn't know English. Like, it was funny, but she was just like, "What the hell?" And so, I remember, like, I was, like, just saying it, I'm like, "Mom, I'm gay," and she was like, "What?" But, like, when she said "what," I thought it was like, "Oh my gosh, she's disappointed," right? But then
Mhm.
she was like, "Mijito, it's okay," and then she started hugging, I was like, "Ah, oh my god." Like, we were, like, crying, like, we were, like, super crying, we were all in tears, and I remember I was, like, shaking and everything, it was so crazy, and then, like, our grandma abuelita was like, "What? What happened? ¿Qué pasó?" And so, like, you know what I mean? And then, like, mom wiped her tears, and she was like, "Tell your grandma." And I'm like, "Okay."
Tight.
I was like I was like, "Abuelita, soy gay." And so she's like, And she was like crying too, but I was worried because she didn't say anything. She just started crying. I was like, oh my god, like is she disappointed or whatever? And so like
You're like, I killed grandma.
I killed
And then
grandma.
that's
She's
it.
disappointed. She doesn't love
Yeah,
me.
that's
I was like,
it.
oh my god, right? But she was like, mijito, está bien. And I was like, oh my god, thank God. Like, no, I was really nervous because like grandma's from like the older generation, right? And so I was
Yeah.
like she's all about Jesus, right? Like she's like all about she's hella Catholic to a T, right? And so I was like, oh
Yeah.
my god, like she thinks I'm an abomination, like like but like she accepted me right there, and I was like so blessed because like I thought like they would be kicking me out or something. Like I was ready, right? I was like, oh my god, like I'm not gonna like live like in my house. I'm gonna be out on the street, right? And so like
The
I
streets
thought about that, right? I thought I
or
was gonna be
the
homeless.
streets.
I thought I was gonna be homeless,
Oh
right?
my
And so
gosh.
I remember me and grandma and my mom were crying, and then my dad and my brother walked in. I was like, "Why are you guys crying?" You know what I mean? And then like I walked up to my brother and I mustered up the courage, and I was like, "Dad, John, I'm gay." And then like they were like, but I remember dad was kind of like in shock a little bit. He was like, "Oh." And then my brother was like, "Oh, I knew, girl, bitch, I knew."
I knew since
Like,
day one.
I
Yeah, I was like,
knew,
oh,
I
okay, cool.
knew, right? But my dad was kind of like, after like me and my brother were talking, like, "Oh, I knew." He was kind of like, "Oh, okay." Like, my dad was kind of
I
like,
didn't get to
"Oh,"
process
like
it.
he had to process it, right? And so
Yeah.
like,
He's
and
like, I
so
just came back from the store, and then
yeah.
you're just like, I'm gay, and he's like,
Yeah,
what?
and so, like yeah, and so yeah, he, like, processed it, but he still accepted me, you know what I mean?
Mm.
And I remember, like, my dad told me, like, "Oh, yeah, like, I after you came out, I had to call, like, your grandma from Peru, I mean, from Mexico, because, like, I guess he was kind of, like I guess not, like, disappointed, he was not disappointed, but it was kinda like,
He wanted to tell
"I
like
have
his
a gay child now.
yeah, he wanted
Mm.
to
What
like
do
tell
I
everybody
do?"
about it.
Yeah.
I guess, right? Like, I guess
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
like no, like, he literally said, like, "What do I do?" I mean, I love him and I support him, but, like, what do I do now, right? And
Mm.
so, like, my grandma from Peru just like, "Oh, just love him, like, just" you know what I mean? "It's nothing bad, it's nothing wrong." You mean, like, "You
Mm.
love him, right?" I'm like, my dad's like, "Yes, I do, like, I really love him." And so it's like, just love and support him, right? And so, like, so not everybody and so all my family in Mexico know I'm gay, right? And so but, like, yeah, but, like,
The
yeah, so
whole
but he, like,
family knows.
but, yeah, but he accepts me, right?
Mhm.
And so, like, so after I came out, like, my entire family accepts me, like, I lived so basically through high school, I was just, like, super fine, like, I feel like my high school years was pretty much my favorite years in, like, my school years, because I didn't get bullied at all,
Mm.
right? And also coming out was also, like, a pretty great time because during my high school years, because I went to high school, like, around 2014 to 2017, so around that time, being gay was seen more as okay. Because I remember,
Mm.
like, my first year of high school, I saw, like, H&M with, like, a pride collection, right? And I was like, "Wait, hold up, what?" Like, I mean, I was like, "People know about us? People are okay? Like, this is everywhere?" Like, like LGBT, rainbows, pride. I was like, "Wow, okay. I guess society was like, okay, we're good." And I was like, you know what I mean? And then I saw like people on the internet, like, like James Charles or like Jeffree Star or Tyler Oakley. And like, you see all the like these like gay people on the internet, right? And
Mm.
so, and then like Ellen and like other like celebrities are coming out as gay and like it was starting to become more normalized. So like, I
Yeah.
guess like, me being gay in high school was okay. You mean like, because like, it's kind of everywhere at this point, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, it was at a point where, like, I guess cancel culture was kind of a thing, so, like, if you don't support, people will be like, "Oh my god, you homophobic," and, like, "You're being horrible." Like, people
Mhm.
were kind of, like, closeted homophobes at that time. They were just like, "Okay, we just can't say anything anymore." I'm like, "That's right." You
Mhm.
know what I mean? And so, like so thankfully, like, during my high school years, I was okay, like, I wasn't bullied at all, like, people were, like, nice to me, like, they were like, "Oh my god, hey." Like,
Yeah. Um, but like even though like yeah, like you came out to like yeah, your family and then your dad came out to you for everyone in Mexico. But like you never came out to
Mhm.
like me or like Jorge or like my family
Yeah.
or anything. So
Mhm.
like
Or other cousins as
we
well. Yeah.
yeah, and like yeah, our other cousins and stuff too.
Mhm.
So while all of you know
Mhm.
we were like in the dark still. So like
Yeah.
we're
I
very
guess
much
Were
like
we? Were
yeah,
we? Because
I
I,
guess for
I,
you is
I'll see.
because
because I had,
no, yeah, 'cause,
like I
I
said,
guess for
You go,
oh.
Ori.
Oh, sorry.
like I never get like so I. I knew since like when Sunny
You
was
knew
like
too, Jorge?
4 that
Yeah.
Sunny was gay because like I could tell like I was already in high school by the time um
Mhm.
Sunny was even born. So
Mm.
so like
Mhm.
I already had my interactions with like, people that were gay at at my school. Crazy, right? I went to a Catholic
Mhm.
school and there were gays. Ooh.
They're
Ooh.
everywhere.
But but like I could tell I'm all like, all right, well, all right. So I remember when I would go visit Jonathan and Sunny. Jonathan and I would be playing video games, and Sunny and Lena would be
Mhm.
playing house or playing in the school bus, and they'd have kids, and they'd be
Mhm.
and wherever Sunny would go, they'd be carrying their little Jessie doll because they were a huge Jessie fan from Toy Story,
Yeah.
Mm.
Mhm.
and like the way they acted, like I know like Sunny's mom and grandma, they'd talk about these things, and also my uncle used to be part of my uncle Jorge when he would be there, like they would kind of talk and they're like, I like like something's different about Sunny,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
and they'd be like, oh, we know. They kind of remind me, grandma would say, they kind of remind me of this like uncle or cousin I know from Peru, and he's like super gay, like he's like super, but they're like they
Mhm.
don't accept him, and they were like scared, they were nervous about like, oh, like if Sunny comes out, like they were scared, like they didn't know how to react or like if you'd be in a safe
Oh
place.
my
It was more
god, I didn't
about
know about this. Holy
more
crap.
more about protecting you than like actually like
Yeah.
you know
Mhm.
So like I could hear like all these conversations. They're like, oh, like there was conversations like, oh, like let's try to like maybe influence like Sunny to like kind of like playing with
Be a
like
man.
cars or like playing with video games. So that's why at the beginning they're like, oh, like if Jonathan got a console, we got to get Sunny a console to play video games. So like that's why you
But I
guys
like
always
video
had.
games. I'm like,
It's like it was always something to like how do we kind of see if we can make Sunny possibly straight, or if they're
oh, this
or
is tea. This is tea.
or
Because my mom was like, I told her like as a kid, I was like ghetto brats, right? Or I want a Barbie, and she'd be like, no, eso es para niñas. No, let's go over here con the
exactly
Legos or
see.
something. And then I told my mom, I was like, I have never done that. I have never done that. You never told me that you tú quieres brats or like I asked it. So now I
No,
have
yeah.
tea. Now I have tea. I'm gonna tell her like freaking Jorge just told me what he told me. You
Oh yeah, throw me under the
lie.
bus.
You were like, you know
but
what I
like
mean?
but like
Lies.
yeah, like I remember like they're like, oh, like let's get like every time with like, oh, like let's try to get Sunny to do like guy things or like kind of like
Mhm.
like because let's see if we can get them to interact more with Jonathan because Jonathan was like a guy like he was doing
Yeah,
like
I was
Mhm.
very stereotypical boring
yeah
guy. Video games, GI
stereotype
Joes.
No, yeah, yeah. Cause
yeah
I remember, like, I it was weird because, like, I wouldn't say growing up, it was kind of like, cause I feel like phobia is a strong word, but, like, growing up as a kid, I guess I was afraid of, like, males growing up because, like, every time I interact with, like, a male, you know what I mean, it always end up bad, or, like, they always find me weird, or, like, they always give
Mhm.
me a look where it's like, "Ooh." You know what I mean? And so, like,
Yeah.
it kind of was, like, a not survival tactic, but it was kind of like a trigger for me, like, to be afraid. That's why, like, growing up as a kid, I wasn't as close with Hori, because like, even though, like, Hori is our only, like, male cousin, you know what I mean? Like, and the thing is that, like, it wasn't because like, I was afraid of him, but it was just because, like, I guess in my mind, it was just like, since he's, like, a boy, I feel like he wouldn't get me, or
Mhm.
he wouldn't,
Mhm.
like I guess,
Yeah.
like me, I guess. It's like, you know what I mean?
and
No,
I
I
could
know I feel bad for
no
Hori,
I
but,
could
like,
I
that
could
was
I
just
could
me.
tell though I could tell so that's why like I wouldn't try to like push you to do things, or I would try to joke around enough so that you may like maybe you try to open up with me a little more. But I could tell them all
Mhm,
like, all right, well, Sunny's not trying to build a relationship with me, and it's like similar with like how I work with my kids now. I'm like, oh, like
mhm,
I can certain people will interact with me and they're fine, and it wasn't until now when you're older that able to be more open with you. But like I
Mhm.
knew at when I was younger that even if I try to be as nice as possible, you still had your doubts. So I was like, all right, let's let Lena do her thing, to like
Mhm.
interact with you more, and I'll just, stick with Jonathan because Jonathan will. It always seemed like Jonathan was oblivious to
Yeah.
a lot of things, even though he knew certain things. He just seemed so
Yeah.
Yeah.
oblivious. So,
Yeah, it's because, like, is it because, like, I didn't like you? Like, I loved Tori because, like, he was family, right? Like, I
Mm.
didn't feel I guess, like, the word is, like, I wasn't uncomfortable with him. Like, I was comfortable with him, but it's just, like, I guess, like, getting close to him, it was kinda like I was afraid in a way. Like, if I
Mhm.
showed him, like, I guess, like, my true colors in a way, like, I
Yeah.
feel like he'll be like it would I guess, like, in my mind, like, I feel like it would ruin, like, our relationship as cousins. I feel like it
Mm.
would probably, like, I guess, make us even more
Like
like,
distant and
Oh,
stuff.
just
distant
yeah.
if I showed him my
Mm.
true colors in a way, and so that's why I guess I didn't try in a way to, like, get close with him because I guess, like, because I guess because he was a boy, and so, like, because like, I was just, like, afraid of just, like, other males. Same thing of,
Yeah.
like, my uncles too, like, what I mean? I
Yeah.
wasn't as close with, like, with my uncle Jorge or, like, with my tío Leo because, like, they were, like, men, and so, like, we're, like
Men.
'cause, like, I guess, like,
they
in
were
Man.
our
men.
Latin culture, like in our
Ooh.
Latin culture, like, machismo,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
yeah.
And so, like,
Yeah.
like, for me, I didn't have 1 ounce of machismo in me, and so, like, I guess getting close to, like, my uncles or Jorge, like, what I mean? Like, I guess because of that, like, machismo-ness,
Yeah.
and so I couldn't do it. It was, like, scary for me in a way. And so that's why I
Yeah.
wasn't as close with ones, cause like, with my cousins, cause all my cousins are, like, girls, like, like, if like, there's, like, like, 4 like, 5 cousins that are, like, female in our family and only 1 male, right? And so, and I felt more comfortable with them because, like, cause like, in the past, like, growing up, cause like, growing up through life, you know what I mean, I'm always like girls or females were always like or women were always like nice to me, you know what I
Mm.
mean, they were always like, they weren't like, I guess afraid of me, or they weren't like ill to me, and so that's why I always felt comfortable being around, like, I guess, like, women. You know what I mean, even to this day, like, I still even feel comfortable being around women. I feel like even with men I'm kind of like like, you
Yeah.
know and so that's why, like, I always just felt comfortable with, like, with my other cousins or with my aunts or, like, with grandma, because, like,
Mm.
they were girls, so
Right. And
that's
I
why.
think that's why as we were growing up, I felt very protective of you. Like,
Mhm.
but like like everyone else, yeah, everybody knew that, yeah, you were like gay or whatever, but like I
Yeah.
had no idea because I literally didn't know what gay was until
Mhm.
I got to high school and I saw two girls holding hands, and literally I was all like, oh, that's cute, they're friends. And
Yeah.
then
Best.
they're besties. And
Mhm.
then my friends are like, no, like they're lesbians. And I'm like, I literally don't know what that is. I literally don't
Like,
know what
is
that
that a
is.
country?
All right, I'm
Like,
like, what? I'm like, what is that? And then they're like, that means that they like each other, like they're girlfriends. And I'm like, oh, because I literally had no idea of like that
yeah.
concept. Because yeah, like I didn't know. Like I said, like I was super like Catholic,
Yeah. And also,
and
like, it wasn't like there wasn't any, like, media about, like,
yeah.
gay either.
So yeah, so I had no idea about any of that stuff. But as a kid, yeah, I remember like, yeah, me and Sunny were like glued to the hip like all the time.
Mhm.
Like that was my baby. I felt like or like
Mhm.
they were like my younger siblings. So I always felt
Yeah.
very protective of them. Even yeah, like when we would have like yeah, like I know Jorge would would mess around, and like I knew he was kidding, but I could tell how it would make Sunny feel like a little like uncomfortable or whatever. Or like when our uncles would be like, hey, you, why you playing with the dolls or whatever, why don't you play with play soccer or whatever. And then I'd be
Yeah.
Oh
like,
my god, I
what,
got flashbacks. I got
right.
Vietnam flashbacks.
And like I would step in and be like,
Mhm.
no, like if they want to go play with me, play dolls with me, or if they want to go and sit over here and like just
Mhm.
talk with me or whatever, like that's fine, like we're gonna go play house, leave us alone. like
No, yeah.
like just leave. Like I felt so defensive over you, and I had no idea why. It was just me
Mhm.
knowing that there was like I knew you were being like picked on or whatever because you didn't like the typical like guy stuff or whatever, that you
Yeah.
did want to just play with me. And so
Mhm.
I was like, no, like yeah, oh, it would make me so upset because I
Mhm.
knew that like you would like get so uncomfortable and stuff. And I just
Yeah.
felt so bad. And I was like, I just
Mhm.
need to protect my little bean
No,
because,
yeah, cause like no, yeah, I would get flashbacks too, cause like, I remember, like, girl, like, I don't know about me, like, I have so many cool memories as a kid.
Mhm.
When you said that, I remember, like, your old house, and you had a carpet, and I smelled the hamsters, and, you know what I mean? I smell and see everything right now when you said that, cause I remember, yeah, cause I remember, if I could think, like, cause like, now I think about it, like, growing up in, like, early 2000s, it was so gendered, because I remember, like, also, like, I remember as a kid, like, my mom had this friend, and, like, when there was, like, a birthday party, like, they would always have specifically gendered gift goodie bags,
mm,
you know what I mean? And so, like, I remember, like, because, like, I was, raised as a boy, like, I remember I would have to get, like, the boy goodie bags. Like, I get like, like chocolates, or I get like a little trinket, like a little robot, or like an eraser that's like a basketball, or like pencils that has like sports, like, skateboarding, right? And I was like, oh,
Sports.
great. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, sure, awesome, right? And I remember like over there in the corner, like I see with the girls, and they have like, pink and like Barbie, and I was like, oh, I want that, but I couldn't get it. You know what I mean? And like
mm,
I remember mom's friends were like, and this was like my mom's friend, right? It wasn't really family, right? And so
yeah.
like I did feel like even more alienated, because like I knew they weren't family, and so like I was like, okay, like they can just hate me. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh.
And so like, yeah, and I remember like, like my mom's like friend's husband like saw me, grab the goodie bag. No, like my mom like gave me the goodie bag. And
Mm.
I remember I had it, and I remember like my mom's friend's husband saw me with it, and he was like, "Oh," like he wasn't rude, but it was kind of like, "Oh," like he thought it was confused. He was like, "Oh, you're confused. Give me that. That's for girls." Like, you mean like,
Oh.
I'm gonna just put it over here, and I was like, "Okay." Like, you know what I mean? I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay." Okay, you know what I mean? And so,
Mm,
like, I just didn't grab it, and I remember I didn't tell my mom about it, cause like, I don't know, I guess, like, cause since I'm the kid, I feel like if I told the adult he was wrong, it would be stupid of me, you know what I mean? Like, cause like, when you're a kid,
yeah.
like, you're always in the wrong, and
Mhm.
so I was like, "Oh, I just lost it," you know what I mean? I was like, "Oh,
Mm.
okay," and so we just went home, and I was sad.
Oh
No, but, like,
no.
yeah. No, yeah, but I remember those moments as a kid, like, I remember, like, "Oh, porque like, why are you playing with that? Like,
Mhm.
why you
Yeah.
act like that? You mean, like, like, be with the boys, like, or whatever like that." And so, like, it
Mhm.
just always would trigger me as a kid, like, like, I hated it
Mhm.
as a kid. And so, like, and that's why, like, and also cause, like, yeah, cause, like, and like, coming back to, like, why I didn't come out to, like, you guys, is because, like, I guess, like, cause there wasn't, like, a right time, I
Mm.
guess. Like, there wasn't, like, a time where I'm like, "Okay, guys, I got something to say." Like, you know what I mean? I guess, like,
Yeah.
I guess also because like, during that time, I guess we weren't as close to talk about deep stuff
Mm.
as a
Mhm.
family, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I feel like at
Mhm.
that time we weren't, as close to talk about that, and also because a part of me was also, like, kind of afraid that you guys wouldn't accept me. I don't know why. It's just like, it's always the bad things, like,
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
head, like, like, "Oh, they might not accept me," or, like, "They might feel different about me," or, "This might change everything with our, like, family, and might be, like, awkward as hell," right?
Mm,
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
like, I didn't, but, and also because I didn't know the time, I remember sometimes too, like, I was like, "Maybe I should do it during Thanksgiving," and I was like, maybe not. Like, I'm like, honestly, when we have Thanksgiving, I'm, like, eating my turkey, and I'm like, "Is this a good time?" But I'm like, "Nah," and I just start cutting my turkey, and I'm like, "Next year." And so I was just like,
Next year.
yeah, I don't wanna ruin the vibes.
Or
And so, like,
next year for sure.
yeah, and I didn't end up doing it, you know what I mean? And
Mm.
so, like, I guess, like, and I remember telling my mom about it. I'm just like, I was like, "Should I tell Jorge or Lena or Patty, like, what, like, like, should I tell them?" And I told my mom about it, like, "Oh, they already know." And I'm like, "Really?" And I'm, like, standing in a skirt with, like, a tank top, like, "Really?" Like
Like,
like, I'm like, "Really? Okay." And so, like, and I guess, like, I I guess, like, yeah, I didn't really come out to you guys, like, it just, like, happened. You
happened,
mean? Yeah, and I remember too, like no, I remember too, like I remember, maybe who I remember. I remember one time, like I remember, like I guess we're talking about relationships, and I remember how I was just like, "Yeah, are you gonna get a girlfriend?" And I was like, like I was like that Lisa meme where she's like staring into like nothing. Like I was like, yeah. Anyways, and so I was like just talking about something else. You know what I mean? And so I remember those awkward moments. But then I remember like
No, it's funny
Corey
because
didn't say
I
that.
mentioned you say that
Yeah.
because you like I'd always see like I couldn't like I knew you were most likely just gay, but I'm like, well, maybe they're like bi because I'm like I'd always see you with girls and you'd be like really close to them, but I was like, well, maybe he's like very just flamboyant guy, and I was like I was in that, so I'm like maybe he's just got a girlfriend. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but it was like those moments where I was like, yeah. Anyways, and I remember like one day, like I remember talking about relationships. Like he didn't mention that to me, and so I was like, I think he knows. I think he knows. You know what I mean? And like I guess like and then like and like you guys just end up like I guess like just knowing and like just agreeing. I think one time I was like, yeah, I think this guy's cute, and like, yeah, me too. Like, you know what I mean? I remember when Lena told me that she showed me a guy, and I was like, "He cute." And then Lena would be like, "Yeah, right." And I was like, "Okay, then that means like she accepts me." Okay, and like you know what I mean? And so I was like, "Okay." Right? And then like Jorge would be like, "Yeah, like you know what I mean?" And then Jorge would be like, "Oh, that's your type of guy." And I'm like, "Yeah." And then it just solidified. Like I'm like, "Okay, Dino." Right? And so like
Yeah.
Right,
I didn't
and
really have
because
to come out.
right, and it literally because yeah, like as we were growing up, then yeah, then I started knowing like what gay was and everything. And
Mhm.
then, but like you said, like there became like that cancel culture thing, like started showing up, and then they're like, well, you can't assume people are gay, you know? So, like,
Mhm.
yeah, like whenever I would talk to my family, like I would talk to Jorge or I talk to my sister, you know, and then, like one of them would be like, so, like, what do you think about Sunny? You know, like you think, you know, like maybe they're like gay or something. And I would be like, hey, we are not going to assume that they are gay
Yes.
because we
Yeah.
don't know. I'm like, we don't know. I'm all like, maybe, but I'm all like, but does it even matter, you know? And they'd be like, well, no, it doesn't matter. And I'm like, all right then. I'm all like, if they're gonna come out, like if they come out, cool. If they don't, you know, and then yeah, like you never did, like you just
Mhm.
it was like, yeah, it was I do remember it being, like, very nonchalant, like, the way we all just found out. It was just like, "Oh, yeah, like, I do like that guy," or whatever, and then we were like, "Oh, okay." So, like, it did, like, confirm it for us, you know, but yeah, you
Mhm.
Yeah.
never, like, explicitly were like,
Wrote it
"I'm
down.
gay."
Sunny
Yeah, like,
is
I am a
gay,
homosexual.
Right,
Sunny,
yes.
Yeah,
check
and
mark,
so,
check.
like and so, like, yeah, and so, like and also 'cause also, like, now, like, nowadays, like, I'm on social media, and I do have other family members that I'm not close with, but I think they
Mhm.
do know because, like, I'm on the internet. I'm super, 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 like, queer as hell. I'm wearing, like, skirts. I'm, like,
Right,
doing makeup, so I feel like they know at
because
this point.
right, and, like, now, like you said, like, you had 2 coming out things
Yeah,
because
and so, like, so coming to now, like,
yeah.
I am now trans, right?
Mhm,
And so, it's because I knew gay earlier, way much earlier as a kid, right? But I
mhm,
had no idea about trans at all until, like, probably, like, senior year of high school. So that's, like, 2018, right? That's, like, pretty recent. That's, like, it's only, like, what, 4 or 5 years, right?
Yeah, yeah.
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 And so, like,
ancient.
I didn't know about trans, right? Because even, like, growing up as, like, like how I said, like, in preschool, like, even though, like, kids didn't bully me, I still didn't feel like I'm part of the boys. Like, I remember, like, in high school, I remember, like, boys would be nice to me, but I still didn't feel like one of them.
Mhm,
You mean? And I feel like maybe because, like, I'm flamboyant, but, like, I remember I had, like, other, like, gay friends that were flamboyant like me, like, we're like, but I was like, I still don't feel like one of them, right?
mhm,
But I didn't get that because, like, at that point, I didn't know what trans was, so I was just like, why do I have this feeling? You mean,
Mm.
I was like, "What is that?" But then like in high school, I remember like, I would go on YouTube and I remember like I would watch RuPaul's Drag Race and I remember there would be like a trans drag queen. I was like, "What? What's trans?" Right? And I was like, "Oh, that's me." I finally found out. I was like, "Okay, I identify with that
Mm.
completely." Right?
Yeah.
And I remember like going through like 2018 to like now. I remember like I knew like I was trans, but I in a way I was kind of scared to accept it too because there was also a lot of like I guess cons on being trans. Like I like people won't see me as a woman no matter how hard I try, like quotation marks, how hard I try, like, like how many surgeries or like hormones I get in, I feel like society won't accept me as a
Mm.
Mhm.
woman,
Yeah.
you know? And also, cause like, and also like, being a trans woman, I feel like I won't get that, white wedding. I probably won't have a man that would see me as a woman or love me as a woman.
Mm.
And so like there was a lot of things in my head that like that's even harder than being like a gay man.
Mm.
And I was like in my head I kind of didn't want to be, but I knew it was right. You
Mm.
mean? Because
Yeah.
like I imagined myself like, well, I can maybe just just be a flamboyant like gay man, but I just couldn't because I kept thinking of myself in situations like if I get married, I have to wear a suit. Like, you know what I mean? If like I want to go in changing rooms, like I would have to go to the men's changing room. Like, I was just like, it wasn't me, right? And so
Yeah.
like I
Mm.
knew that like I am trans. I knew that like I felt like a girl, like a woman since I was a kid, but I just didn't know the word. But now I know the word, and I was trans.
Mm.
And so like I shouldn't be afraid. You mean like girl, like you were afraid being gay, you shouldn't be afraid being trans, right? And so and so
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly. And so like, it wasn't until like, last year that I was like, you know what, I am trans. And I remember I told my parents about it and they were like, oh, okay. Like they were super accepting too. Like I'm like, that's fine with me. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
my parents were like, whatever makes you happy and like whatever, you know, keeps you like I remember whatever keeps you alive. And I was like, "Okay, mom." Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just want you to be happy, right? And so
Mm.
like, and so it was really like heartwarming to me that like, my parents accept me and like, and also like my cousins like, know that I'm trans and they accept me. Like, you know what I mean? I remember like even thinking about it, like I am so privileged and so lucky that like
Mm.
literally my whole family accepts me.
Yeah.
You mean? Like, it's
Mm.
so crazy how I can, like, go to, like, a family event or go to, like, a Thanksgiving, like, because I feel like a lot of LGBT people don't have this privilege of going to family events and not being comfortable. You know what I mean? Because
Mm.
you always got, like, that one family member that's like, I don't accept this lifestyle. Like, you're gonna go burn in hell. You know what I mean? And
Oh.
it sucks,
Mm.
right? You can't, like, like, there's always, like, that needle in, like,
Mm.
the side of, like, ugh,
Yeah.
right? But,
Mm.
like, I'm lucky enough to, like, like be with my family on Christmas or Thanksgiving or like Halloween or like a birthday and like be myself. You mean?
You just got slayed.
Period. You know what I mean? And so that's why like I look back and I'm like, wow, like thank God that like I have such love and privilege to like, be myself.
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
like, and coming to now present, like, I am a trans woman, I go by she, her, you know what I mean? I go by Sunny. You know what I mean? Like, I
Mm.
mean, sometimes my family uses, like, I guess my dead name, but, like, in
Mm.
my mind,
Mhm.
I think as I think that dead name as, like, a nickname. Like, it's like a term of endearment to me.
Mm.
Like, you know what I mean? It's kinda like honey, or it's kind of like, just like a nickname. And if you're like a Latino family, like, you know what I mean? You have family members that call you Flaco, or like, you mean, or like other nicknames that we can't say because it is offensive, but like, you know what I mean? But yeah, but like, so like, yeah, it's kind of like that for me. And so
Mm.
it's so like, but like, yeah, so this is my first full circle, my full journey, being a queer individual.
Yay.
Yay!
Yay.
But, like, yeah, that's literally my entire whole story, But, like, yeah,
Mm.
I should write a book.
So, Sunny, Have you ever thought about like actually officially changing your name to Sunny? Have you thought about that, or you feel like just
Um,
keeping your
well, the
OG
thing
born
is that like
name?
the thing is that like cause like the thing about me is like I think about other people, like my family, like, I don't know, for me I always think it's like selfish. Like I feel like I shouldn't think this way because it is me. But
Mm,
like I just feel like, oh my god, I think it's selfish to like to force my family and parents to call me a different name. Cause like you guys been calling me like, my dead name for like 23 years. And
mm,
so it is kind of hard to call my name, like my new name, because like you've been saying my old name for like 23
Right.
years, right? It's like
mm,
Mhm.
implanted in your brain, right?
mm,
And so like in my head I was like, it's kind of selfish to say that. But like, but like I feel like, and so but the thing is that when I go out in public or I'm talking with strangers or I have like, government files, I feel like I should have like, a female name, you know what I
yeah.
mean? Because it
Right.
just
Yeah,
makes
and
it
that's why I
easier.
asked. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so like I do think about changing my name, but like I feel like with my family, I'm completely fine if they call me, my dead name, or if they do a slip up, they're not gonna be like, "Oh, I'm sorry," like I don't really care because like to me it's just a
Mhm.
term of endearment.
Mm.
But if it's like a whole stranger that's like, saying my dead name, it's like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Okay, what?" Like I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, not this." Like, you know what I mean? I feel like it's like, mm-mm. It's just awkward.
Yeah.
But if it's like
Yeah.
family, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, like, you know what I mean?
Mm,
And so like for me, I am gonna change my name in the future,
mm,
like, for like, government stuff and like, going out like in
Yeah.
public. You know
yeah.
what I mean? But
Mm,
like, yeah, but for my family member, for my family, I just feel like it's just whatever they feel comfortable.
mm,
You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because I remember it's funny too because I do use Sunny, but like I kind of use it because I guess you could say it's kind of like an alter ego because on the internet. But
yeah.
like it's funny too because I was thinking about Sunny too, but like I was also thinking about like how my family would say it too because like they're like Sunny, you know what I mean? And I remember like I remember
Mhm.
telling my mom about that. She's like, that's a ugly name. I was like, okay, well, you know what I mean? I was like,
That's
okay,
an
mom,
ugly.
whatever. It's a name I use on the internet, but like I remember I told my parents like, what about like Ariana? Right? Because it is kind of like a spin-off of, like, my original name,
Mm,
you know what I mean? It's like, it
yeah.
has kind of the beginning, like, like,
Um,
and yeah, like,
Okay.
Ariana.
so, like,
mm.
Ariana, right? And I do like that name, like, Ariana, right? Like, yeah. And so
That's
Yeah.
what I was
and so
thinking.
I was thinking, like, I guess, like, I do love that name. Even as a kid, I even liked that name too, because I did have a friend, like, a bestie who was named Ariana, and I'm like, "I want like, you know what I mean? And so
Mm,
I was like, yeah, I was thinking maybe Ariana. I feel like, that rolls off the tongue, even with my last name. And so I was like, I feel like Ariana would be good. You know what I mean? And so, and I
mm.
remember my parents also try to, like, I remember, like, like, even today, I was, like, with my mom at Macy's, and she'd be like, Ariana, venga acá. And I'm just like, okay. And, like, and so, like, my parents are trying. And
Mhm.
so it's like, that's really, like, sweet of them.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so, like, I do think that I probably would change my name as Ariana, you know?
Mm.
And yeah, I feel like I would do. And it's funny too, because and also it is a perfect time too, because like my like like ID for for California is about to expire, so I'm just like, it's time.
It's
It's
time.
time.
It's
It's
destiny
time.
saying that like
All right.
it's
It's
time.
time.
It's time. And so like I have to like like renew it, right? And so this is the perfect time to like do it.
Go
And
get your
so
whole
yeah,
name change and everything. Yeah.
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 And so this is a perfect time. And so I was like, yeah. So yeah, I'm
So
Ariana.
so for the podcast, would you
I feel like
then
you would call me Sunny
go
still
still
because, like,
Sunny?
it's like because I feel like it's just like me on the internet. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, I feel like now, because this is live, you know what I mean? People know, like, my name is Ariana.
Yeah.
But, like, but I feel like I like but I mean, it's cool if people call me Ariana or Sunny, but, like, I feel like I like Sunny more because, like, it's just kind of like I feel like it's an alter ego. You know what I mean? Like, on the
Yeah.
internet, like, I
Yeah.
miss Sunny Cakes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Miss Cakes.
Yeah,
Got
it's
it.
like PewDiePie, like, you don't call PewDiePie, like, the government
Felix.
name. Yeah, so that's why, like,
Yeah.
like, his, like, government name is not PewDiePie, but people call him PewDiePie, you
Mhm.
Yeah.
know? So, like, yeah, so, yeah. So, yeah, I feel like it's better if you guys call me, like, Sunny on here.
Mhm.
Mhm. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Wait,
It's
Sunny,
been. Oh.
I sorry, I said I had a quick question before we start to wrap things up because I was really curious when we were growing up. Did you know that I knew that you were? I think when we were growing up, when you thought that you were gay before, or did you like kind of think like, oh, he doesn't know yet? Because I'm curious.
Um,
Because I feel like you knew that I knew,
I
but
feel
I'm not
like
sure.
you did know, but I feel like you didn't like that I was in a way.
Yeah, because like when I
Because
was growing up, I was like, yeah, I
because
was like, what is going
because
on?
I'm not trying to shade because I remember every freaking time it was so annoying. Every time we play freaking video games, like, why are you a girl? Why are you a girl character? Oh my god, you always play a girl character. Be a boy character. And I'm like, it was like honestly made me mad because he was saying like, "No, let me be a girl character." You know what I mean? And I
Yeah,
remember
yeah, I
as
remember
as
that.
kids, I remember like especially like I remember there's like this game we played. It was like I don't know like 007 or whatever. And I remember like the girl characters would have like red acrylic nails when they shoot guns, and I'm like I want red acrylic nails, right? I was like, but it's just nails. Like you know what I mean? It's not a whole character you see, it's just nails. I'm like I want the nails. Let it be. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and so yeah, and so am I so like because of that, I thought you kind of hated me being like, I guess like girly or like anything like feminine, you
Yeah,
Mhm.
know,
yeah, yeah.
and because I remember even saying like, why do you like girl stuff? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like I
Yeah.
guess and also I need to like remember, I need to like, recognize that you were also a kid. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah, I was
And
just
so and you
questioning. I wasn't
yeah,
coming
and
from
you
like a place of hate. I was like
yeah.
just
Yeah.
genuinely curious, like, oh, why,
No, yeah. And
stuff
so
like
like,
that.
I need to like recognize you were also a kid and you were also taught like, like boys like blue and girls like pink. And if a boy likes
Mm-hmm.
pink, it's kind of like, oh, that's different.
Yeah.
That's
That's
weird.
weird.
That's suspicious.
That's suspicious, right? And so like, because like, and that's why I think like gendered things, like I understand like, sometimes you got to put things in a box, but like I feel like, we should teach like kids like it's okay that if you're a boy and you like pink or girly stuff or vice versa, it's okay. You know what
Mhm.
I mean?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's just a toy. Or I mean, or
Yeah.
it's just
Mhm.
a piece of fabric. Or I mean, or it's just a journal. You know what I mean? Like it's not gonna change your whole entire like sexual orientation. I mean, I was like, gay, but like, it's just like it's not a big deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
And
And
like
so I
to like
mhm,
add on to that, like with the whole like fabric thing or whatever,
mhm,
because I remember growing up, which is funny that we had like uh a thing where like yeah, like you would see dresses or whatever and you're like, "Oh, I want to
mhm,
wear that." And I remember growing up when we would go find clothes for Jorge and he would get like he always wears like his little like button down shirts or whatever.
mhm,
And I remember like going with them and going shopping, and I'm like, "Oh, I want one," just because I thought it looked nice. I'm all like, "This is
mhm.
cute. I want one." And I remember like being like yelled at like in the middle of Dillard's, like, "No, like you can't wear that. That's for boys." And I'm all like, "But why? It's a shirt. Like it is a button-up
Yeah,
shirt. Like there's nothing wrong with it. There's no like what makes it a boy shirt?" And they're like, "No, but like it's for
it's
boys."
blue.
It's blue. You're not supposed to be wearing that. And I'm all like,
Well, I don't know. I don't
it
think there is
was
a difference anymore, but back then, actually the way the buttons were,
oh, you're right.
yeah,
The
the
buttons.
buttons went
Mhm,
one way for the guys, and then the buttons would go the other way for the girls. So they'd open
Mhm.
differently.
mhm.
Oh.
But
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like I remember as a kid, I would also get like, I didn't get yelled at, but my mom will give me it haunts me to this day. She'll give me like pulls in close and do the whisper like, no, it's for girls. No, 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 it's for
No.
girls. Let's
Is
go
your
now.
mom Consuela?
Yes, she whispered. I hated that. I remember she will pull me in, like she would do the whole entire freaking like routine. I'm like, oh my god, like like she didn't yell at me. She just would whisper, yell, like no, 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 no. Like
No,
it's
no, no.
es pa niñas, okay?
it's
Let's go
bananas.
acá.
Yep.
And I was like, and I walk in disappointment, like, "Ugh." Like you know what I mean? Like I hated it, and because I
Let's go
remember,
get
like,
you another
because like I
striped
remember
shirt. Let's go get you another striped
yeah,
shirt.
I hate because like yeah, because I remember like because like in
Oh
the early
god.
2000s, like because like nowadays, because like I feel like kids don't understand like back in the early 2000s, like it was super gendered, like
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
for kids, like
Mm.
it was so gendered. Because I remember like because like I don't know if kids like because like I mean there's Toys R Us like Toys R Us still, but like the big box Toys R Us that were still like around, like it would be super gender. Like there would be like blue, and then like there would be like a sign of like Hot Wheels or
Right.
Legos, all in blue, like monster truck, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, like you know what I mean. And I was like, oh my god, right? And over here it's like Barbie, Bratz, like
Right.
Monster High, pink, purple, glitter, like My Little Pony. And I was like, I want to go in that section. You know what I mean? But it was so intimidating because it was like super like girl or like
Yeah.
boy, right? And so like being a kid in the early 2000s, like you knew that like you can't go in there, you
Mhm.
know, because
Yeah.
like it wasn't your like gender or whatever, you
Mhm.
know. And so like I would always be intimidated because like I loved it, right? But in my head I was like, I am not supposed to be in here, you know.
Yeah.
And so like I would like just admire all the brats and Barbies, like I can't get you, but maybe one day. And that one day came, girl. I have a lot of them right here in my room, you know? And so like yeah, so like it's just so crazy. And so that's why then that's why like I really appreciate nowadays because like it's not as bad being like, you know, gay or trans. Like it's super open. Like, you know, I'm like, girl, it's Pride
Yeah.
Month, you know what I mean? Hello,
Mhm.
like, you know, everybody's like, hey gay. You know? And so that's why like I feel so happy that like especially in like even in kids media, like, you know, you see people like talk about gay people, which is sad. Like, you know, people always say like, oh, they shouldn't talk about it. Like, honestly, they should. I would have loved that being like, you know, a gay kid. Like, you know, imagine
Mm.
seeing Blue's Clues saying like, you know, oh my God, Pride. I'm like, that's right, Blue's Clues. That's right, Blue Pride. You know, or I remember this one episode, like I saw like on Muppet Babies where Gonzo wanted to wear a dress, like you know what I mean, and they were like, yeah,
Mm.
Gonzo, you wear that dress, and I was like, period. You know, or like that one cartoon showed Loud House. You saw like the little black kid having two dads. You know what I mean? Like there is so much representation in media that
Yeah,
like
Mhm.
it's
it's just
different now
you know what
than
I mean? Like I
before.
feel like so happy that at a young age kids can see that and like you know like being a like you know if you're like if you were a kid in this time period and like you have that feeling like oh my god like I might be this, but you see this everywhere and it's being like appreciated and it's being like okay, you feel good
Mhm.
about yourself. Like I'm just like it's okay,
Yeah.
you know? And so that's why I feel like nowadays I feel like the like representation is so much better, you know? And so like
Mhm.
I feel happy that the new generation didn't have to experience what I experienced, you know?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I'm like, good for them.
Yeah.
How are you doing on time? Rambling. I feel like I rambled the entire
I-
episode.
yeah, I think it's time for us to wrap it up, Miss Clayton.
Well, that is the end of today's episode. I like rambled a lot. I'm so sorry. I mean, it was Pride
You
Month.
just got slayed.
So, you know, of course, I'm gonna be the one talking a lot. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
but
The expert.
I know, right? But I would like to say thank you guys for listening to our episode. I hope you guys stay tuned for our new episode. And if you guys want to follow us on our social medias, it will be on our link tree, and also our individual socials will also be in the link tree. And yeah, that is it for today, you guys. You guys want to say anything else or bye?
Happy Pride Month.
Happy Pride.
Happy
Love
Pride.
is love,
Yes.
and you should be yourself. Like, we
Yeah.
accept you.
Yeah.
Here at
Yeah.
Table of Four, we accept you, whatever you are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, I think that's it.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, gays.
Bye everybody. Bye.
Bye.